make sure to work at your human limit. That sounds like a human resources problem.
Either a human
Yeah, I was
resources
gonna say that sounds
problem.
like a bad slogan because it's like no breaks,
Yeah.
no relaxing, operate at the absolute
it
maximum you
sounds
can.
a little bit scary.
Yeah,
I
okay,
know it
never
does.
mind. Maybe don't operate at the human limits. What is up, Overinspected? This is... No, we are Overinspected, right? Anyway, whatever. Hello. It's Manu back at it again with Chai and Carrie, as always. And you know what? We're going to start this podcast episode off with a bit of... Cubing news. I kind of wanted...
Wait, where are you going? Like, was that what you were trying to do?
Okay, I didn't want to do MLG Game Horn because I think it sounds really annoying. Like, you know how like there's like whatever a newscast starts, they have like this little like theme. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's like it's really bombastic, kind of like.
Yeah. So I'm like playing
yeah.
like the horn and whatever. I think it'd be really funny if we turned this into a segment. You know, like Cubing News. You know, something like that.
Oh, some YouTube channels already do that. Well, I guess it's not a segment;
Yeah.
it's their entire channel. But like every week, they have like all the NRs and like CRs and WRs.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
in any case,
Copyright theft.
Well, hey,
We
greatest
actually
podcast.
have Cubing News today.
We actually have a lot
Yeah,
of
we
Cubing
do
news.
have Cubing
So
news.
let's get right to it because your time is valuable and my time is really valuable too. Okay. Anyway, in major Cubing news today, this weekend actually was, I believe it was Northeast Championships. I should have looked at this earlier. No, it's Mid-Atlantic Championship. I'm an idiot. Anyway, so big story coming out of Mid-Atlantic Championship this weekend. Tommy Cherry. Tommy Cherry is the guy whose name is on everyone's lips. That sounds really stupid to say, but it is true because he broke not one but two world records today in two different events. I wonder how many times that's happened, like ever. Like whenever one person has broken two world records in two different events on like the same day. I feel like it can't be that often, but
I bet.
I feel like it's happened though. I'm pretty sure it's
feel like
happened.
it's happened, but like it's like Max Park with like 6x6 and 7x7. But like
Yeah, that's
these
what I'm
are two
thinking of.
different
Still.
events that are from polar opposites of the.
Right. So
the
Tommy
field.
got a 261 clock single world record, and also for 3x3 blindfolded, which is the event I think he's probably most well known for. He got a 1472 mean, a sub 15 mean of 3. And 3 blind is a really interesting one because in order to get a mean, you can't make any mistakes across 3 solves. It's not like an average of 5 where you can get 1 DNF. This one you have to be perfect across 3 solves. And it's 3 blind of all things too, right? So amazing job. Congratulations to Tommy. And yeah, I mean, you guys, if you are just hearing about it or you've heard about it before, but pretty crazy that he was able to get, I don't know, the fact that just 2 different events, and they're drastically different events, is mind-boggling to me.
It's mind-boggling, but for Tommy, it's not super surprising because if people know Tommy, like
True.
he takes those events very seriously, and
True,
he's an
true.
all-rounder. But the skill set that it takes to actually do that is borderline insane. And just to like kind of like highlight the importance of the 3 blind world record, it's sub 15, right? So the previous world record held by L.A. Kabalansky, 15:05 mean. And then that's
Tommy
when
had the record before that for like
Yep.
over 2
Right.
years. I think it was like 15.24. So it's been like holding steady, barely above 15 for a while.
Yeah, and I remember, God, I'm trying to think. I remember in US Nats 2019, Max Hilliard got a 15-second single
That's right.
In 15.50, and now
in finals.
yeah, it was like finals because it was like I want to say it's one of the last solves that happened during that round, or it was just really good timing that it was.
And
like,
everyone was
when the
watching
cameras
it. It was on the
were pointed.
stream. I
Right.
think it was the
Yeah.
finals.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say maybe you're gonna mention this, Chai, just that with Tommy Cherry, I think in a way it makes sense that he's good at both clock and 3 blind because the method he uses for clock, which is 7 simul, involves a lot of kind of doing quick math calculations or arithmetic calculations during inspection.
Oh,
So
right, yeah.
I think it takes a lot of the skills of doing like quick thinking, against the clock. Like, I guess pun not intended.
This is good fun.
Right, like during inspection, you're like trying to trace everything together and like some combination of like visualization and arithmetic, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I remember he said that in his tutorial video, that like in order to do it fast, you have to not think of it as like 7 minus 2, but think of it more like when you like see a clock at 7 o'clock and see a clock at 5 o'clock, there's just a visual distance of 2. And like that's just a more intuitive, off the cuff thing that your brain can do, and it's faster, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that's almost really related to this thing where like if you give people like images of like dots, right? There's a certain number of dots, and you ask them to count it as fast as possible, right? If the number of
like
dots,
segment them.
Right, so if the number of dots are between 3 and 6, people count them instantly. Like there's no calculation necessary. But once you start to get to 7, 8, 9 dots, people start grouping them together. But they're not counting each dot individually, and they certainly are not doing like 3 plus 3 plus 3. It's just like, there are 3 groups of 3, therefore there must be 9. So the brain is really good at doing like really visual things like that, which is probably why he mentioned it in that video.
Yeah, I have heard the same thing. But I guess, is this where we pivot to what the episode's topic is?
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so let's move in that direction. So so especially since we're already talking about clock, right? So as Carrie mentioned, Tommy is using this relatively new method for clock called 7 simul, which is, I believe the way it works is, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but basically like when you look at a clock, there's a front side and a back side. And traditionally, or what's been done in the past, is you would solve the cross, the center, and then the 4 edge clocks on one side, and then you would flip the clock over to the other side, solve that cross again, and then do the corners. That's how it's basically always been done, and that's how it used to be done for a very long time. People knew that there were other methods to do clock, but that was basically everyone used the same method. And then I think relatively recently, I want to say in the last couple of years, the concept of doing this no flip method became more and more popular. People were at least looking into it, and people were at least trying it out. There's, I think, the former world record holder, Yunhao Liu.
Caleb. Oh.
I think he was the one. At least the one that the no flip tutorial that I watched was also called the Liu method. And right. that one is really interesting. And no flip is exactly what you think it is. You can solve the whole clock without flipping the clock over to the other side in the middle of the solve. So obviously you have to flip it over during inspection. But yeah, you flip the clock over, you do a bunch of calculations, basically figure out how to solve the cross on the back side while you're solving the cross on the front side. So you can, while some of the pins are up, you're doing the clock on the front side, and the pins that are down, you're solving the clocks on the back side. And it's very, very interesting, and it was very difficult to kind of translate that into like actual competitive results, because it's very hard. Everyone was used to just doing one step at a time, basically. But this required you to do 2 steps at a time. You have to do all the calculation in 15 seconds of inspection, which is already hard enough as is. And then now, like, I remember not that long ago, I remember hearing about 7 simul. And it was when I heard about it, it was still in like development, and I think I saw Tommy's introduction video to it, and so that's when I first heard about it. This must have been like, I want to say August or September.
Yeah, it's pretty recent, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a pretty new thing that people are doing.
Right. And it's a huge breakthrough, and I think like a lot of people like knew that no flip existed, but didn't really know how it would translate to the competition. And now with this world record, it is very clear that like the old method, which I believe is called the Pockman method or whatever, that method is dead. I think it got saturated, and it had reached its competitive potential, and now we're on the era of no flip methods in clock, which I think is very, very exciting for an event that people thought was like, this event is so boring, it's not even a twisty puzzle, everyone does the exact same thing. We now have a radical innovation, and a radical innovation that works, which I think is very, very cool.
Radical innovation and deeply complex.
Yeah, it's hard. It requires skill. Like the old Pockman method was extremely straightforward. That method is the same method that you would use if you didn't know how to solve the clock and you're just figuring it out for the first time. But this one is on a whole different level.
And I think like whenever a new method like takes off and then ends up getting the world record, it's always really impressive to me, because that means they have to kind of break through all the barriers of like sub 10, sub 9, sub 8 in the same amount of time that like the old method had like 20 years to do that.
Right.
It's basically like, you know, working against the, or like not against the clock. I'm not gonna use that pun again. Basically, like it has to be like significantly better than the other method to take over, which it did.
Yeah, and it's significantly better, and you can clearly see with an event that's so short in time span. And people, when they were flipping, they were using the Pogman method. Like it was still a very fast event. Mm-hmm. Every millisecond counts, and I think Stanley Chappell one time did an interview when clock was still considered a shunned event, and he was like, "What is the hardest event to do?" And he said clock. The reason why he said clock is because of the dexterity. Yeah, so it's pretty insane. So, well, I guess this poses the question for clock, right? So it's at 2.61, right?
Yep, 261 single.
Yeah.
Do you guys see where do you guys see the limit of clock? Can you even imagine the limit of the clock single and maybe the clock average?
Well,
like what does that look like?
I guess I haven't looked at the 2.61 world record, but I am thinking like if it took 7 actual turns, then, you know, if you get lucky, what is it? There's like a maybe 1 in 12 squared chance that like you can skip one of the turns.
Almost certainly higher. Lucky cases in clock happen all the time. In a typical average of 5, there are usually at least 2 to 3 lucky cases that you can take advantage of.
Okay, I see. So I'm just thinking like, well, again, I don't know if maybe the 261 was already had the lucky skip there, but if it didn't, then like it could drop by 1/7 of the time. But I should just search myself before making baseless claims.
Well, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to see what they're doing. All you can count is how many turns they did, or like how many sets of turns, because you can turn multiple at the same time, right?
Right.
Or multiple gears. So it's really hard to tell because clock is, well, one of the least spectator-friendly events to hold because you just can't see anything. Right. In fact, if we were to make clock spectator-friendly, you definitely need over-the-shoulder.
You 100% need to do over-the-shoulder.
It's really hard to watch.
It would not work otherwise.
If you're watching clock from like the edge on, you can't really see anything.
No,
it just looks weird.
It looks so strange.
Yeah, it's hard to watch from the front. But I mean, if you were to go watch the footage right now, until Tommy like breaks it down, it's kind of hard to tell. But I mean, if you think about 7 sets of turns, is sub 2 as a single? Like, I wonder what they would think of sub 2, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What if we like? What is the clock? What do you call it? WB?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know what the WB is right now.
The unofficial world record.
Dude, I have no idea. It might be worth this quick fact check.
Before you find out, like, guess, do you think it's gonna be sub 2 or not? Like, think it's 2.01?
I think it
could be sub 2.
Oh, you don't think it's sub 2?
I don't think so.
You don't think it's sub 2?
I think it could be sub 2. I think it could be like 1.9x.
I don't think so.
Okay, Chai disagrees. I will say it's 1.8x. I just want to choose a different thing.
Okay.
I can't find it on YouTube because they would label it Rubik's Clock World Best, right?
Almost certainly, yeah.
Well, isn't there a list of unofficial world records?
Oh, where would you look for that?
The Speedcubing thing. Well, okay, to keep the podcast going.
Right. So bizarre.
I was just gonna quickly mention, like, Chai, you also brought up Stanley Chappell earlier. He is another data point that you can be good at blind and clock at the same time.
Oh, true. Yeah, I didn't even comprehend that.
So now we're getting more data points to form a pattern.
True. Also, by the way, I just watched the clock WR video, and it's actually really funny, I think, because so Tommy is solving the clock.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
He puts it down. He sees the time. He's like, oh my goodness, like this is gonna be the world record. And he's like, you need to flip over this clock to the judge. Please flip this over.
He's like, flip, right?
Which is so
a lot of times the judge doesn't really know clock as well as the competitor. Well, obviously in this case because the competitor is the best in the world.
Right.
But the judge is like, what do you mean? What do you mean flip? Like it can be. It's just like funny how frantic the flip is.
Dude, even I have to tell like my judges, like, because they'll start writing the time, like, no, you need to flip this because I need to know if I messed up or not.
Well, because it's super easy to. It's super easy to have one single dial off.
Yeah, it's so easy. Like, yeah. But in any case, yeah. So I'm watching that, right, and he's turning insanely fast. So I thought that he's like not turning as fast as he could because you're having to do simultaneous moves. But clearly he's put loads and loads of practice into this. So
okay.
I mean, it's a great time as it is, and it's actually, I think it's actually going to be pretty difficult to cut this down. But I mean, lucky cases abound.
But I do think that the single that's currently at hand, 2.6 basically, 2.61, that could be the future world record average, I think.
I mean, yeah,
so?
of course it totally could.
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
I think the world record average could be sub 2.5.
Really?
I think so, just based off of what I'm seeing here, because, like, I mean, the other thing, too, is, like, with this new methodology, like, as Manu mentioned, we haven't seen a lot of situations where the lucky cases have showed up. And Clock has got a lot of those situations.
Yeah, but to get a good average, you have to get lucky 4 times out of 5.
It's not insanely unlikely. Like, okay. I think if you know how to take advantage of some of those cases, and so the other thing that Tommy is doing right now is I'm just completely theory crafting. This could be completely off base. As a disclaimer, I wonder if there's a case where instead of solving the opposite side cross, like as you see it, kind of as if you were to do a Y2, if it's possible to do it if you were to do a Y2 and like a Z rotation, or
Y2Z.
Yeah, like kind of solve it from like a different orientation even, and maybe that could give you better or worse cases. I don't know. I'm just coming up with stuff.
Are you saying like I'll solve it with like a 90-degree turn so that like your grip isn't as awkward or something?
No. So like the grip wouldn't necessarily change, but perhaps the order that you do things in is either easier to remember, or B, like let's say like you have to do 0 on one pin, but it ends up being 0 on both sides, so you can just completely skip that pin.
Okay.
Like maybe there's a sequence or something. I don't know. Like that might not work. I haven't thought this through.
Yeah.
See, I have No, go ahead, Carrie.
Oh, I was just gonna say that like, if this episode is about like what do we think the human limit of Clock is, basically like I don't think 7th Simul is the end.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like,
really?
It's kind of like not safe to say that anything is ever the end unless you're doing like Rubik's Magic.
Yeah, I guess in that one, the first person who learned how to solve it, that was the end. There was nothing else.
Yeah, that was pretty much the end.
Nothing else to magic. Magic ended instantly.
I know. But like, yeah, with Clock, like we thought it was at the human limit, but then it wasn't. And then Chai, you said 2.5 average, sub 2 single.
Did anyone end up finding out what the WB was? Or was it?
No. Well, it's interesting. Like, it looks like the website that used to have all the unofficial world records, I can't find it anymore. Like,
yeah, there's a chance that maybe they got taken down or something.
Maybe got taken down because like too many people were like spamming it.
It's hard to upload. Like, it's hard to keep track of it probably as like the. Like
or
the
hard to keep track of
host.
like who's legit and who's not, right?
Right. Yeah, like that's probably an issue at hand. I can imagine that to be a problem.
Oh, so this is interesting, actually. Apparently, Tommy actually got a sub 3.7 Simul unofficial 6 months ago.
Oh, yeah, I think I heard about that. So, like, this isn't even that big of a drop for him.
Are you talking about the single?
Single.
Yeah, what was it, like 2.87 or something?
292 is what I see on his channel right now.
Oh, 292. Okay, so
I mean,
like,
he does have an official sub 3 before this one.
Yeah,
I think that's it.
299, I think.
That's not 7 Samuel?
I don't know. Actually.
Oh, it might not have been.
Well, actually, it was 4 months ago, so maybe it was 7 Simul.
I think it probably was 7 Simul.
Yeah, he was using 7 Simul by 4 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in any case, that kind of invalidates our point a little bit, but I think it's like a huge. I still think it's a huge deal because
it's
like,
a breakthrough. It's a breakthrough because like
I think
people use
if
it.
If anything, it cements it, right? Because maybe there's like one-off record that's 7 Simul, but then we find some other method, or Pacman makes it come back out of nowhere, right? But the fact that like, I guess there's a good history, like a 6 month at least history that like 7 Simul is like way better than anything we've ever seen. So.
Right. Yeah. I was gonna say that I think Pacman did make a comeback because I think Jacob Chambers, the previous world record holder, used like the standard method with flipping, but then the one before that, like Caleb Trelford, used no flip. So it's kind of gone back and forth, but like I think there will be a point of, well, I know we talked about this earlier, point of no return, where it's like the no flips are far enough ahead of the flips that like the flips can't get it back.
Right.
Or it could keep flipping back and forth. Who knows?
I mean, just the time that
Carrie,
it takes to
you're on
flip,
fire with
you
these
know?
puns today.
I really feel like it's just the terminology lends itself too easily. Like, don't call it the Rubik's clock if you don't want people to say the word clock all the time.
Good point.
Yeah, that's true. Wait. Let's pivot a little bit. So we're talking about like these new innovative methods. So if you guys are in the cubing news, I think there's another event where it's great to have that conversation of whether or not this new method is going to be involved in the limit of this event. But if you guys are not aware, well, now we'll educate you.
Educate me, baby.
There's a new method out there in the cubing atmosphere. Cubing sphere. The cubing
Cubosphere.
There's a new method in the cubing ethos, developed. Well, not I don't want to say developed, but pioneered by Ari Pearson.
Okay.
Our Cubers Live friend, baby.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ari. But yeah, OLL parity avoidance, OPA.
Ah,
Yeah.
so that's what OPA stands for.
That's what OPA stands for, OLL parity avoidance on 4x4.
Can you give like a rundown of how it works, like at a super high level?
Yeah, let me give a rundown of how it works, and obviously I don't know all the details because I'm not gonna learn it, like just based off of my skill set.
Yeah, just something so enough so that like me and anyone
Yeah.
else who's listening can like go look at it up for themselves.
So essentially, the parity state. I'm not gonna go into the definition of parity. I don't have that. So like the parity state of a puzzle can be like even or odd.
Yeah.
Right? And then that will dictate, I don't know which one. I think if it's odd, you end up getting OLL parity. Right? That's going to dictate whether or not you get OLL parity or not. However, there's an interesting discovery that the slice moves are what dictate the parity state of a 4x4. So, because of the slice moves, you can actually almost with certainty know the parity state by edge pairing. After you solve your Yao edges and after you solve your Yao centers, I'm pretty sure you're going to be able to know your parity state.
I think you only have to solve 3 centers, and then it's already known.
It's already known. Okay,
wow.
even more interesting. So, because of that, based off of the way that you decide to turn, you can actually count how many slice moves you have throughout the solve. And if you count and keep track, you're going to be able to know your parity state. Therefore, you can actually manipulate a certain move. You can do an extra slice move. You could just, if you know that it's even parity state, you just continue your solution as normal. And then you're going to be able to avoid OLL parity. I think you still get PLL parity, but
Yeah, you can still get PLL parity, but that's a lot faster to solve.
it's way faster.
And
now, here's
the reason for PLL parity is a lot more complicated, I think.
Right. Now here's the trick to OLL parity, right? So the trick is that, well, like, okay, so you know your state, you can manipulate it, but like the big thing is that you have to trace your wing pieces. You have to do some counting and memoing. By doing that, you know your starting parity state. After that, everything, you have to manipulate the cube in a certain way. So you kind of have to do like extreme look ahead and like thought in your turning throughout OPA.
Do you know if like doing that wing counting is similar to how we trace wings in blind? Is it similar?
Yeah, it's very similar, I think.
Yeah, I think you literally can use 4-blind wing tracing if you want to, although that's like less efficient.
It's quite slow, yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like the difference between like counting up to 15 versus counting whether a number is odd or even at all, right?
Okay, right.
Like,
right. Makes sense.
Because all you need to know to do OPA correctly is like get even or odd correctly. But I guess like I think similar to clock, 4x4 was an event that everyone was solving essentially the same ever since Yao became the norm in like 2012 or something. And like it sort of felt like an event where like it would always stay the way that that's the fastest. So I think it's really nice, it's refreshing to see someone like Ari try something new and then put it in competition and prove that it works.
Yeah, and then Ari is a very, very fast 4x4 cuber.
Yeah.
He's not no slouch. Like, look, at the moment he's not as fast as Max Park, but he's up there in the world rankings. Right?
I think he's top 10, or he was at some point top 10.
Right, and then there are more and more people, slowly but surely, looking into OLL parity avoidance, right? And it's an interesting, thought-provoking question because 4x4 is a very established event. it's not only established on the methodology with Yao. Like, I think most people recognize Yao as quite an efficient event in method in terms of look ahead capability and TPS. Right? It kind of contorts the way you build the cube in a way to maximize both potentially, if you can.
Right.
I'm not saying Yao is the end all be all, obviously, because this is happening, right? It's kind of like the CFOP for 3x3 in a sense of how prevalent it is. But not only is it like solidified by the method, it's solidified by the cuber, and that's Max Park. So we have a really, really solid foundation for like, well, how does this play into the field of like, does this actually push 4x4 forward? It's a really, really interesting question. And does this affect the limit of cubing? Like, is there a world where, let's say Max is always going to dominate 4x4. Can he learn OPA? And can he do it, right? Like, and will that change something?
I heard from somewhere that Max Park is probably not going to learn OPA. Like, I don't know if you've heard the same thing, but like, I think the idea is like, if you can execute OLL parity really, really fast, and your kind of shtick is that like your TPS is just really good, sometimes just having to think about OPA is enough to make it not worth it, because like it's just better to spam through TPS. And I think, you know, Max has always been good at that. Although like with the 3.13 world record, you know, that did take some more advanced like techniques. So, you know, maybe Max is not just doing TPS heavy solving anymore.
Yeah, I mean, so the way that I see it is like it's a little bit, this happens in also like in speedrunning communities as well. Someone discovers some trick or whatever, but the trick is like very difficult to perform. I'm thinking like something like frame walk or carpetless in Mario 64, and you know there's a divide. Some people like want to do frame walk because it's objectively optimal, right? The task would do something like it because it is like, if you could do it perfectly, you can save time. But then it's also like a difficult trick that requires practice, and you know, even if you practice it a bunch, it might not work, or there's, you know, some other downside. So the way I see it is that eventually everyone is going to have to move over to stuff like this, because as soon as one person can pull it off, they're just going to have a huge advantage in front of everyone else, if they can manipulate their parity in this way, right? And so then the rest of the field kind of has to catch up. I don't know how similar this is to when CSP first came around for Square One.
Oh, right.
But it seems like it feels like it might follow the same trend, just naively.
I mean, CSP
is algorithmic, right? So CSP is like algorithmic based in that every cube shape has two algs that manipulate parity.
Yeah, right. There's like odd parity and even parity depending on the number of slices,
and you can use one or the other alg for both. So you trace the parity state, and then you execute one of two cube shapes. So I think I think that's how CSP works. The difference with 4x4 is I think you have to periodically keep tracking.
Yeah, Chai, I was gonna say the same thing. It's like with OPA, like as you're turning, like turn by turn, you have to keep track of this number.
Right.
Whereas CSP, like you have to do a lot during inspection, but once you do that inspection calculation, you can sort of turn as fast as you want, and like the time post inspection will be like relatively close to maximum turn speed.
Right. I guess because the difference is like the time horizon, right? Like for Square One, for example, we know the cube shape algorithms for every single cube shape, and I think all cube shapes are less than 7 slices.
Yeah, 7 is the kind of like God's number for a cube shape.
Right. So, and 7 is not that much, right? And if you look at a cube shape, you know, like, okay, well, if I were to do it normally, it would take 6 slices. But 6 slices means that I'm going to get parity. Okay, so I need to insert another slice in here somewhere. So it's a small number where you can do that. Whereas like with 4x4, if we want to track even 4 centers, I think 3 centers, that's really difficult to do. It takes a lot more than 7 slices, for example.
Yeah. Well, this is just a technicality, but I think that with CSP, it's not really about how many slices you do.
Oh, I see.
It's sort of like a little more nuanced. I think it's about like how many slices that swap an odd number of corners.
Ah, okay. Odd number
I think
of corners. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I think like it doesn't like the gist of it is the same, right? Like you just have to do all your tracing and then figure out like choose alg 1 or alg 2 based on what you get.
Well, thank you for the correction, by the way.
Oh yeah. So here's the thing. See, here's the thing with 4x4, like with OPA. I would love you guys' input if you guys think OPA will like push the limit. Like, do you guys think OPA is that game-changing method, right?
Well, I wouldn't
say
that like
game-changing, but like, is it the next? Is it 7 Samuel 4x4?
Well, if someone can come around with a max's turn per second and OPA, then like that will drop half of their solves by the time it takes to do OLL parity. And like, what does that take? Like 2 seconds for fast solvers? Maybe like 1.8 seconds.
Yeah.
So that's like a 1 second drop, which actually sounds huge, assuming that they can turn max speed, or not max's speed, but turn at maximum speed. And keep track of OPA, and I'm assuming they can't, so I think it's like maybe more like a half-second drop. But either way, like, yeah, I think assuming all else is equal, like OPA kind of by definition has to eventually push the human limit. Like,
yeah, I think it's gonna be a prerequisite at some point. Like, all humans are gonna have to do OPA in order to just squeeze out as much time as possible from the solves. The other thing, which I'm not super familiar about, but so like what current like gaps are there in 4x4 to improve on? Because that will also depend, right? Like, if the current methods we have are like relatively airtight and we have this one improvement OPA, then well, that's great, right? We can improve the current method. But if the current method is kind of reaching its like limit, then maybe it's time that we try and look for another method, something else that we can do to like get past that barrier, you know?
See, here's what I think. I think OPA is going to push the 4x4 limit forward, but I think there's a caveat. I think it's going to be beyond Max Park's career. So I think 4x4 is in a specific situation where Max is so dominant, like he has so much to offer for 4x4, that I think OPA will just not be a big player in the world record singles and averages until Max decides that he's gonna hang it up. Because like, I don't think Max is going to be the cuber to implement OPA, and I think he's gonna hold the world record fine and dandy. As you guys mentioned, the next person to hold that world record, it might be years down the line. Like, he's so ahead of everyone. It's borderline insane. And like, the person that is going to break that world record has to do a combination of OPA and TPS. And that's just not something that I don't think it's possible. It doesn't exist yet, right? It doesn't exist yet. So in my opinion, I think there's 2 limits to 4x4. The first limit is Max Park. And I think the next limit is like 10, 15 years down the line, truthfully, in my opinion.
Wow.
There is this component that 4x4 hardware could use a bit of a jump.
Yeah, right.
So 4x4 hardware could use a bit of a jump, which is why I think Max Park has that limit, which I think is more entertaining. And I think it'll probably be like a sub 15 average. And then I think 4x4, he's going to do so many solves that the next world record, he's just going to have no parity. He's probably going to get a PLL skip. Like, I think it's just one of those things where it's really possible to see 4x4 be like 11, 12 seconds. Like,
because no parity is 1 out of 4.
I just think that he's going to get lucky because he's not done cubing. He's going to, like, getting lucky is not a crime. I think at this point, Max is going to churn out so many 4x4 solves, he's just going to get a nice case. And that's like very different compared to like 5x5 and 6, where like, well, at that point you make your own luck, right? Like, I think 4x4 still exists in like a small enough like puzzle state to where like a PLL skip will matter and no parity will matter. And I think it will happen. I think like sub 15 average, I could see Max doing that in the future, to be honest, as he's becoming more skilled.
Yeah, I mean, right now, like, world record single is only 16, right? And the world record average is like 19. So there's still quite a bit of ways to drop. But I guess, like you said, it's just about like getting those 4 or 5 lucky scrambles. It's like
that has to happen at some point, right? Like, someone is gonna get lucky, and it's just a matter of like when that happens. Like, it could happen next week, it could be years from now.
Yeah, and I guess there will be an era post Max, like, which is crazy to think about, but you know, we never thought there would be a post Zemdegs era, but now here we are.
Right. right?
Actually, I wanted to highlight a point. Did you guys watch Timon's averages recently?
I've not seen.
I watched like one of them.
Timon has this crazy average. I forgot what it was, but this guy got this 481 single, and it was the most beautiful TPS solve I've ever seen in my life. And my theory is true. He's practicing his TPS. His averages are not there because he's spamming a lot of TPS, which goes to show at some point in this conversation of like theory crafting and looking ahead, like, I mean, Timon's one of the goats at it, but with no TPS, it's only going to take you so far.
Right.
Yeah, I think I saw that average too. Like it was just like.
Do you know which solve I'm talking about? There's a very clear sub 5 that just looks borderline ridiculous.
Yeah, it was like the 4th solve in an average, and like the camera looks like it's like a fisheye lens.
Yeah. You know the solve I'm talking about. Like, and
well,
it was
it's
pretty
kind of weird
recent.
because I usually don't watch his solves, so it's like kind of crazy that the one I do watch is the one that you talk about.
Well, it was insane.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, it seemed like a high move count, right? It didn't seem like one that was using a lot of tricks that Timon typically uses to lower the move count to like 50. It could have been like 60 moves or something.
It looked like he executed like a 60 move alg.
Yeah, it did. I am curious about that. But are you like thinking about what the limit for 3x3 is now? Like,
I think so.
Jumping from event to event.
I think, you know, Timon and Max, they have one of the greatest rivalries of like the modern like cubing era, because of like how different they are, and they're learning from each other. Timon's learning TPS. Max is changing his solve style.
Yeah.
Like for years, Max would have like reconstructions that people were like, I could do this, right? But he's just faster. And now it's like, well, no, we definitely can't do that. Like
now reconstructions are like things that need an explanation or like someone to walk you through it step by step. Yeah,
so it's hard to say between those two, like the limit for 3x3. I mean, we talked about this on a few podcasts prior, but I think it's a really good way to close out this podcast, because obviously 3x3 is all the glory, the main event.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you guys think? What do you guys think the limit of the 3x3 average or 3x3 single, or who is it going to be?
Yes.
How much
time? Before we like talk about that, were we gonna get to 3 blind at some point, because that world record was also broken?
Oh, 3 blind. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting question. The only thing that makes me think about 3 blind is that it's just a highly right now, like it's one of those things where it's like the method is highly developed, right? Like everyone is using some variation of the same 3 style methods. So
there are definitely explorations into like other like more advanced levels of 3 style. Like I don't know if you know this guy Abhijit. I don't know his last name, but
I always post a 5 style alg on Facebook.
Right, yeah. So I think he somewhat infamously has been learning 5 style. It was like 5 style in 5 years or something. You learn 1 alg a day or something like that. So that'll be really interesting if he can actually get 5 style down, and maybe if he can implement that, because I mean it just reduces your move count, right? And it reduces, and if you can memo it fast, it reduces your memo. You can memorize faster, you can execute faster. It sounds like a win-win for any blind method. So, but I think blind has like a more of like a theoretical limit in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like top cubers are sort of like combining together like a mishmash of a lot of very specific alg sets. Like I know one of them is LTCT for last target corner twist, and like there are all these things just to lower the alg count by 1. So like a scramble that normally take 9 algs now takes 8, but that will only happen for like maybe 20% of scrambles that can actually use this alg set. So it's like you can't just learn 1 alg set and hope it's gonna help you out. You need to learn the whole mishmash of them. I think in terms of like a global average, like I think some people are tossing around like 13. Maybe that's already like,
damn,
maybe that's
13?
like last year. Maybe like people have already lowered it even further than that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The 3 blind is also really interesting because there's like apart from every other event, like all the blind events count memo, right? So we can talk about algs all we want and TPS, but it's crucial. Like all that is useless if it takes you 3 minutes to memorize the cube. So
Yeah.
Actually,
that's
I wonder.
really it's another very
memo's
very interesting
really
thing.
important.
Yeah, the mental
Yeah.
is super key for all blind events.
And like tutorials give you so many tips and tricks on how to speed up your execution, but almost no tips on how to speed up your memo, because that's like a very personal kind of internal brain thing. Like everyone speeds up their memo in a different way, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. I don't know what people like Tommy use, but like I remember a big thing back in the day when I was learning blind was like audio versus visual, right? And now there's probably something else that like people do. Or maybe you just stuff everything into your short-term memory, just turn it all into audio.
I think people still do
that.
like audio edges, like visual or concepts for corners.
Interesting.
I don't really
okay.
know, but like I know what you mean though. It's like the more advanced they get, the more it makes sense to just stuff everything into audio.
Right.
See,
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. So I'm trying to remember like the development of 3blind. I want to. So like the question I'm thinking of like right now, the single is 12 from Tommy, right?
Yeah, it is.
Like the big question is so close to the barrier. Like, is it subtenable? I think, and I could be wrong here, but I feel like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, before COVID-19 hit, didn't Jake Klassen like have some crazy like sub 15-second solves, which is like a long time ago.
That
There was
sounds
time-
right.
Times
yeah.
that are similar to the world record today.
No, I feel like the times today are like, I mean, especially like Tommy's 14-second mean. Like I think they're kind of a new age of times. Like I don't know if anyone is getting those times pre-COVID, but Jay Klassen was like, I don't want to like say this with any authority because I'm not like a good blinder, but I remember he was getting like averages of 12 that were really fast, which is really impressive because in an average of 12 for blind, you're only allotted 1 DNF. But yeah, I think
maybe that's what I remember, because I do remember that like because you know there's a lot of controversy and stuff that also happened, but I remember during that era, I remember it being a cut above everyone else. Like it was like significantly better, and back then we were talking about like I think. Because I think I remember the Max Hillier WRs, the 17, right? And then I don't think the WR mean was not sub 20 at that time.
That was Ishan's.
Ishan, I don't think he got sub 20 mean.
No, but he had
Ishan
he had the world record mean, right?
He did.
Yeah.
I was there for that, it was very funny to watch.
it was 22.67, I think.
Okay, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess either way, we could pivot to 3x3. Like, I know 3 blind is like, I feel like none of us know quite enough to say.
True. Yeah, that's also true.
I mean, it'd be cool to see 3 blind sub 10.
Wow.
I think for
I think 10 is. I think sub 10 single is very hard. I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
I think Tommy.
I think the number of Alex needs to reduce like significantly. Like I don't know what is the average, like the average scramble. How many Alex does it take?
Probably
Does
like
anyone know?
10
Yeah.
Alex.
So I think that it needs to go down to 8 or lower.
Well,
Like, it's
like
not
Tommy
possible.
Terry, like I think as of like a year ago, he had like a couple of sub 10s, like a 9.72 or something,
Wow.
3 blind single. So like it's already happened unofficially.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
So it's just I guess like waiting for the right RNG with T-Noodle to create a good scramble. That's all you need.
Hey, T-Noodle, you can do it. You can do it, T-Noodle.
I know, like give me some solved edges and some solved corners, please.
Yeah. So I think
I'm
this
starving.
This is interesting, and I think this leads into the final segment of the podcast, or at least what we want to cover today is, well, 3x3 of course, but also at some point I think we should talk about how at some point we're going to develop our methods probably about as far as humanly possible, and then after that everything is just going to be luck. Like, can we execute on the lucky scramble? And that's really interesting because what it feels like right now is like we're in an era where we are really rushing towards that. I think when I first started cubing, no one was ever thinking about this, and I think pre-COVID it was not that big of a concern either. Like, people were like maybe thinking about it, but it was not to it didn't feel as palpable as it does now. Like,
Well, like,
313 has really changed, I think, a lot. 347 changed a lot, and 313 has also like really changed a lot, at least in my mind, of where we are to the human limit.
Well, like if you remember, like back in the day, like maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, big pieces of advice in 3x3 was, hey, slow down your turning, work on your look ahead.
Yeah.
And right now, if you want to be like someone in the top of the game, that advice, truthfully, like, I mean, you could do slow solves, but clearly no one's trying to throttle their TPS at any juncture.
Not anymore.
You can make an argument back in the day when like people were averaging 7s, 8s, and that was like, you know, in the top 50, top 20. Like, yeah, you probably, the hardware wouldn't even let you attempt to.
Right, exactly. So you might as well be more efficient, right?
It's kind of like people are finally treating 3x3 like the Rubik's Magic, except you have to look ahead everything.
Yeah. It's not just the same solution every time.
It's a TPS race. I mean, people tried Max's solution. Like, they tried to downsolve his solution. I don't think very many people were successful at, like,
even when
beating
they could predict the entire solve because they'd seen it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's funny to like call it like Rubik's Magic, but with look ahead.
Rubik's Magic, but with look ahead. So
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Do you guys think where do you guys think the single lies?
So
like
so I think we
fastest
discussed
single
this.
we'll ever get.
Yeah.
So I think we discussed this a little bit in the 313 episode, but let's say like if we use current methods, right? And let's say I think we were talking about like CFOP. Let's say that a lucky scramble on CFOP is a 30 move solution, because realistically, I don't know if we're ever gonna get a 20 move CFOP solution. Like that's gonna just be insane lucky. And I don't know if we can get to 15 TPS, but if you can get to 15 TPS on a 30 move solution, we're looking at a 2-second single.
Well, has anyone reached 15 TPS? Well, I guess
exactly,
they
like,
might in the future.
I mean,
yeah,
like, I think
maybe,
a T-perm is 15 TPS.
Right, but you have to sustain that 15 TPS while doing look ahead. Like, right now at the moment, it seems insane. It seems not possible, right? But hardware could improve. Maybe there's, I don't know, better methods for look ahead. Maybe we'll just have a better method overall. But I think 1XX is probably outside of the range of a human CFOP solver, as it stands right now.
I agree. I wasn't thinking of anything lower than like some type of 2, some flavor of 2.
Yeah, I think low 2 is probably about it.
Low 2? I think it'll probably be. Yeah, I think low 2 is a good bet. Do you know what?
What is WB, by the way? I know Patrick got a 2 at some point, right?
I don't know. I know Patrick has a 2 from like a long time ago.
It's a low,
but
it's
like
a 2.
I know there's like a 2.6 by Rayhong, but
and I think Max got a
faster.
2 unofficial too, right? He got 2.9 or something.
Yeah, well, like, are you just? I guess you can assume that if they got it, like unofficially, then it's just a matter of time before the same luck rears its head in a competition.
Right.
So like this is something where like I think I watched Max Xiao have a really good solve. I think it was a 4.5, something like that. And Max Xiao actually finished F2L at 2.4.
Okay.
So that plus PLL skip.
If you're telling me that it's not beyond the realm of possibility that even Max Xiao can get a sub 3, right? I think at that point, 2.5 is probably. I can't see it going any further. Like, I can't see anything beyond 2.5. The splits for 2.5 with a skip is ungodly.
Like, it would just be absurd. Like I think I was joking about this in the last episode, but we would have to be getting very close to zeroing.
Like, is a triple X cross into a Ola skip too much to ask for? Like, is that even going to be sub 2.5? Like, can that be sub 2.5? Is that executable?
I don't know. I think if anything, actually, you probably want the PLL skip, not the OLL skip, because PLL tends to be more moves.
Oh, sorry, yeah, PLL. So PLL skip.
But I mean, triple X cross could be maybe 10 moves. 10 moves, 3 move insert into, like, I don't know, soon or something. But see, even if you do that, that's also 20 moves.
Well, triple X cross, I could think of a couple scenarios where triple X cross could just be presented by the scramble. You could even possibly make a triple X cross if there's just a line in your scramble, like if you're intelligent enough.
Maybe.
Like, there are ways to do it. And right now we're getting to that point where like I think everyone X crosses. It's like just part of the game, you know. Like it's really really developed, and I don't know. It's just
You're telling me Aaron was ahead of the game when he tried to do X cross on every single solve?
Well, I mean, yeah, basically, but like that's where you blur the line of what is CFOP. Like, I mean, is it still cross F2L?
Right.
But it's just one step. Like you could even make it an algorithm. I don't know. Maybe not an algorithm.
Yeah.
But...
Maybe no. I mean, you're not wrong. Maybe there is like a algorithm that comes up with like, you know, like here are like some cross F2L cases, some X cross cases, right? I could see it.
But this is all talking about a single though. Like we're talking about a single like lucky fluke.
Yeah.
And I guess it sounds like we're saying about 2.5 as like a ballpark for like the lowest we could ever possibly imagine. But I think average is more interesting because you can't rely on luck for most of the solves.
Sure.
And so like what the average is kind of like maybe what that solver gets when they're kind of like truly in their zone. Without any like crazy luck.
Yeah. That's definitely an interesting discussion.
I'm gonna guess 420 just because.
Oh really? Really?
That's a good number.
Yeah, so I think 3 is possible. I think 3
average.
I think at least high 3, like 390 should be possible.
I'm gonna make a
remember
prediction.
Like Timon got the first sub 5 average like 4.86.
Mm-hmm.
Some people were saying like this is the last second drop of the average we'll ever see.
Wow.
But I guess nowadays people don't think that, because like I guess Yi Hung Wang's 469 is already a third the way from 5 to 4.
I think that this would be really sad if it came to fruition. I think the last 3x3 world record average will be 3.88.
Well, why would that be sad?
You'll never see it broken again.
You'll never see it broken again. You really think 387 is not going to come along?
Like, I'll die. Like, literally, before it gets broken.
Maybe. Yeah,
maybe.
Because
3.88.
I mean, statistically, it might be impossible, right? Because, like, it might take, like, longer than the age of the universe or something for us to get, like, 5 scrambles that would be even theoretically good enough.
Well, yeah. So if I say it like this, triple X cross, F2L 4, last layer. And, like, what if they just know the alg?
Oh, you're saying to execute all of that, there's just an alg?
Yeah. It's the 3x3 gets...
Wow, that'd be insane. That'd be a crazy alg set.
Can you imagine 3x3 being 3 look?
Well, I mean, I think maybe an easier way to 3 look is like maybe double X cross and then do not multi-slotting, but like look ahead so that F2L 3 and 4 you know how to do it in one fell swoop.
So F2L 3 4 is an algorithm basically.
I think like if the two open pairs are like next to each other, then like a lot of people know kind of optimal solutions to like do both.
That's a good point. Like, what if you just like developed a method where what if you developed a method where like you always double X cross the left side, and then you always have RU to finish slot 3 and 4 on the right side.
Well,
right.
I feel like
you make a subset for that.
Yeah. Well, I think that like, oh wait, what just happened here? I feel like what's best for each scramble is not going to be as clean cut as that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. What I'm just looking at is okay. I hope my audio isn't clipping. I think it's good. I think it's all fine. But I'm sure there'll be some cases where it's like smarter to solve the like diagonal pairs.
Right.
And like the fast cubers will know how to adapt from that. So it's never like one size fits all. You know?
Yeah, no, you're right. I think double X cross F2L 3 4 as a 1 look is definitely possible, and then last layer as your 3rd look. That would be scary.
Oh, you're saying 1 look, because even 1 look last layer is an insane proposition, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, or I guess like if people do EO or edge control frequently enough, like people already do ZBLL and like
right. That is way more tenable.
Yeah, that's way more tenable.
A lot of people know ZBLL actually.
Which is very
interesting.
I don't know, like because there's so many algs you need to know for one look last layer that it's like, if you can just slightly adjust your F2L solution to get EO done in there, it's like you make a 15,000 alg set down to like 500 or something like that.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, no, I don't think
yeah,
it's 15,000. It's like,
you improve by a factor of 3. I think you improve by a factor of 3, right? Because
so the method
3 maybe.
So the method would be double X cross F2L3 for edge orientation ZBLL.
I don't know.
So F2L3 4 would be EO, like
plus.
I don't think
all together.
I don't think this is gonna work for every like solve. Like there will be like bad cases where people just say like you should solve it the normal F2L 3 and 4 separately way, like we used to do in the 2010s. But like we are talking about the world record average, where every solution's gonna have something nifty to it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's bizarre that we're even talking about this. This is like where cubing is. It's bizarre. Like,
I mean, I think it's something that has to be like thought of now that like, because something I think we mentioned in the other episode also is like there was that one Wired video, right? That was like there will never ever be a solve under 3 seconds. But,
oh man,
but we're right up against that.
That video's over.
Like we're right up against that video now, and they predicted that there was gonna be nothing past that.
Nervously.
But exactly, but we're gonna get there sooner rather than later, and we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So
it's gonna happen. Sub 3 is happening.
And another thing that comes out of all this is, sure, like the record might be broken, but it will take 15 years maybe. So what does the WCA do? Because like the value of the world record is it's so valuable, right? But the frequency at which it's broken is so low that we're not gonna. Right now we have records that are broken maybe every couple months, right? Right now we're in an amazing stretch of world records where 4 world records have been broken in the last 2 weeks. But that's not gonna continue forever. Like the world records are gonna stop unless we add like new events or something like that, which is a different matter.
Well, I think there will be an age in which world records become rare sightings, like, Halley's Comet or something.
Right.
But that didn't stop like track and field from still being a sport that like millions of people
That's a good
partake
point.
in.
That's a good point.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? It remains to be seen. I don't know if we will hit the human limit of cubing in our lifetimes. Maybe not. But in any case, what I think will be very interesting is just to see how this is going to develop in the future, because it's very cool. Like we live in a very interesting era of cubing, in my opinion. I used to think that like everything that was to be discovered has already been discovered. Well, that's clearly just wrong. Like that was extremely naive of me to think so. And I think what's really cool is right now is a very, very interesting time also, because we're right in the midst of a stretch of a bunch of high stakes competitions where we might, that extra bit of pressure might drive someone to just pull off something absolutely insane. So who knows, maybe 313 will be broken sometime this summer. It could happen.
I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised. I don't know.
I wouldn't go that far. I would be surprised.
I think 313 will be broken late this year, 2023.
Wow, that's a bold prediction.
I think so. I think Max is gonna potentially be able to do it.
Interesting.
Like I think Max is gonna go back to back. He's gonna be one of those world records. Like I don't think he's finished with 313.
Wow.
I don't know. I feel like there's got to be a lot more solves between 313 and 347 before the world record goes down again. So I'm gonna put it at least a year from now.
At least a year from now.
Watching you get laughed at when it gets broken tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll make another short.
We'll make another short about how we predicted the 3x3 world record.
We all said different answers, so that means that we have 3 times the likelihood of like someone getting
That's
it right.
true. That's true.
Right? Yeah, that's true.
I'm just playing the odds. But in any case, I hope you all enjoyed this episode on the human limit. As you can tell, Carrie and I are also at our human limits because both of us are yawning, hoping we need this podcast to end. So
I didn't even notice I was yawning, but maybe it happened.
In any
case, about that time.
Guys,
if you didn't know, it's 10 p.m. over here while we're recording. It's late.
It's kind of late. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this interesting theoretical conversation, and I really like doing the cubing news. Maybe we'll include it in some other segments in the future as well. But for now, that's all we got from the Overinspected folks here. I hope you have a great rest of your day, evening, morning, afternoon, whatever. I said it in the wrong order, but peace out.
Yeah.
Good day, good
don't
afternoon,
forget to operate
good night.
at your human limit.